Wondering, with the $25,000 initial grant, when did you realize you needed more, and then how did you end up getting more funding? What was your process?
Well, we knew we needed more, and we got to know two grandsons of the first Yale unit members, Harry Davison in Manhattan and Mike Davison in Atlanta. They're cousins and share a grandfather, Truby Davison. And we asked them to be on our fundraising committee. And for, I think, 3.5 years, every Thursday morning at 6 a.m. West Coast time, we would talk to them about, people they knew, foundations they might be aware of to raise money, and we wrote a lot of letters. And Ron and I, we'd go to the East Coast to interview people and do production and film planes or whatever we do, and then we'd go to New York and we'd show what we had at the Dolby screening room there and try to get people to write checks for us. And we'd get $100 here, $100 there, and it just really wasn't doing it. But Ron started writing a quarterly newsletter, and we started collecting email addresses and sending this out and letting them know it was going, and gradually it got out to more and more foundations. We learned that there was a level of money and foundations that you don't really hear about, but that wealthy families have to give away X amount of money every year for tax purposes. And so there were people that had some relation to the story, whether it was through Yale, whether it was through the Navy, or whether they just wanted to hear see a patriotic story being told. And we kept trying for a corporate sponsor. We worked on J.P. Morgan for over 2 years, because originally Truby Davison, the young guy who founded the unit, his father was J.P. Morgan's business partner. And J.P. Morgan had given the first Yale unit $100,000 to get started and buy airplanes. And so we knew some people working at Morgan, and we went to them and said, we'd like the same amount of money adjusted for inflation. And we were asking for $200,000, but all that time we were working on it, every week in the news, there'd just be horrible reports about their corporate behavior and Jamie Dimon, and they've done this and they've done that. But we still wanted the money. We still kept trying to get it. In the end, it fell through. And I think sort of out of embarrassment and kindness, they gave us $25,000, which helped. But in the end, our corporate sponsor was FedEx, and we had been wanting to go to them for a long time because Fred Smith, the founder, went to Yale. He started the Yale Aero Club, and I think he was a Marine, but he flew with the Navy, I think in Vietnam, or at least during Vietnam. And so we were all but sure he'd be aware of the story, and indeed the story was something that really meant something to him. He was also a member of Skull and Bones, the way probably 5 of these first Yale unit guys were as well. And so in the end, they came through with the last $150,000 that we needed to finish the film.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the other little bit on fundraising that I'll mention is that our fundraising was always driven by necessity. So it wasn't like we were just trying to raise money randomly for, to say, oh, we would like to raise, $250,000 or something like that. It never was like that. It was always based on necessity. So as we were developing the script and we started editing, we'd realize there was a big chunk that we needed to go somewhere to film, or a group of people that we needed to interview. And then we budget for those particular parts of the film. So we had an overall budget for the film, but as we went along over those 7 years, we kind of did mini budgets where we said, oh, we need to do that particular shoot. How much is that particular shoot going to cost? Okay, it's going to cost, and we break it all down, travel, whatever else was involved, and then our fundraising efforts would drive toward fulfilling that particular chunk.
So in the newsletter, we would say we need $25,000 to film a Sopwith Camel, or we need $20,000 for our composer. Right. Those were 2 things that we really put out there, saying this is the next big thing we need, and we would be out of money, at each of these stages.
Yeah.
And this was a quarterly newsletter, you said that you...
It was intended to be a quarterly newsletter, and most of the time it was quarterly. But A couple times it was off schedule, but generally it was a quarterly, yes.
So I find that fascinating. So you would weave in like your own stories or different things, and then you also had information on what was next for the final part of the film.
As a matter of fact, the first thing that we did before we even started fundraising seriously was that we actually put our website together first, which was kind of a little weird way of doing it, you know. And what we did as part of our website is we put up the imagery that we already had, and we started to create kind of a historical online museum, as it were. And the website that we first put up is actually still up there today. But that gave us kind of somewhere where our potential contributors, followers could go and see, you know, what we were about and what we were trying to do over time. And then as people got on the email list, that, you know, there was the added outreach with the newsletter.
Actually, the very first thing we did after we put together the nonprofit organization and got our board together, which were friends of ours, is Ron and I put together a PowerPoint presentation of what the story was, and they all fell asleep.
Oh no! Yeah. Was this at like some type of a mixer or something?
No, it was at my house, and just, you know, here's the story, and I had plied them with wine, and you know,
that was the problem.
They all fell asleep. Yeah.